I'm a marketing person, so I tend to define things in terms of the usefulness to people, i.e. to consumers. And content is almost like a way of saying, well, it might be useful, or it might not be useful, it might just be, rainwater that's collected in the bucket. It seems to, categories like news, entertainment, humor, information, these words are definable in terms of things that consumers can do with them. Content is the rest, in my view.
Oh, I see. Okay, so you see it kind of as an other category rather than as the umbrella piece that holds it all together?
If you know what it's good for, then it is what it is. If you don't know what it's good for, call it content.
They actually cautioned us about using the word content in the title originally because they sort of thought that it was a catch-all that didn't mean anything. But I think things have changed. Actually, I do think that now it means something, and because I'm going before Cece, I'm going to steal what he was probably going to say, which is, as we define it in the book, it's really anything that you can create or share that tells your story. And that's the way that we talk about content in the book. So that means that anything you create or share, on your own, but also anything that you're creating or sharing in outposts, like on your Facebook page or your Twitter feed or anything that's, out there in the social sphere. So that's how we talk about it.
Yeah, since you took my definition, that's all good. But I mean, I talk about it all the time. I mean, obviously we talk about content a lot, and I always talk about how when we were kids, right, we created all the time. Give a kid a crayon, give them a piece of paper, give them anything, and they'll create, right? They don't call it content. They don't focus on the SEO of it. They're not focused on it. They just do it because it's fun, and they're engaged with it, and they enjoy creating it. And that's the way I talk about content to people now. I want people to, you're creating stuff, whatever it is content. Content's one big blanket term, right? But focus on, what you're creating, what you're sharing to inform others. And it is storytelling. I don't care if you're a nonprofit, I don't care if you're school, I don't care if you're me. I mean, you're telling stories to people, right? You need to, everything you create, every piece of content you do develop should be about telling your story. And that might be something as simple as a tweet, throwaway tweet, about, what you're talking about, or what, a couple minutes ago I was talking about, Meg bringing me this, God bless you. But, that's part of my story, the fact that I like black tea lemonade. It wasn't like I was setting out to get any SEO value out of it. I just put it out there because it's just who I am. But that's what content is to me. It's everything you're putting out there to tell your story, plain and simple.
I think every single person now that's on the internet is looking for content to consume. So because of that, as the content providers, we're, I can speak for myself, I have a pretty much constant anxiety about like when and how am I going to provide new, fresh, interesting content that is actually, relevant to my audience or my client's audience. So everyone's looking for it.
And I was going to say, and let's face it, I mean, because there is so much of it out there, and whether it's brands putting it out there, the marketing programs, it's us putting it out there. I mean, it's so easy to create content these days, but making something that's actually engaging, that you actually want to consume, is a whole other ball of wax, and that stands out, right? It gets your attention. It's Times Square is a square out there. It's nothing but input, and trying to get on somebody's radar is tough.
Yeah. Right, I think that also what's new is that content is an opportunity, right? I mean, it's really something that I think all brands, all companies, all individuals need to do, just to get your voice out there, to participate in the conversation and let people know kind of what you're all about. Like like we were saying earlier, that you need to tell your story. So I think what's new is that we see it increasingly as an opportunity, and there's lots of reasons for that, right? I mean, it's social media is enabling it. It's a lot easier. Just the technology has enabled it. So I think that's kind of what's new as I see it. John?
So I think the distinction between our uses of the word content is clear now. Content is what people produce, and information or a laugh or the other things are what consumers consume. So I see a big story in this. The phenomenon of the last 5 years has been essentially the debranding of information. We now take information not based on the authority of the presenter, but on the availability of it. And that has given rise to our interest in content, because now suddenly we're kind of at a loss. We've got all this stuff, it's unbranded, it's being produced, and so we call it content, and it's not clear exactly why it's being consumed, except that it shows up, Google's doing its best to tell us what matters. I think that nature abhors a vacuum, and this is a vacuum. We're living in a moment of branding vacuum. We're in that moment because production has become so easy. Everyone's a blogger, everyone's a publisher, everyone's making stuff and putting it out there, everyone's producing content. Nature, by which I mean actually the opposite of nature, I mean people. People will want to develop brands, names. They'll want to give structure to this flood of stuff. And so what's really fascinating about the next 5 years is the rebranding of this stuff. The way that, we had some disparaging comments about demand media. Demand media is trying hard to brand a certain kind of content. Cheeseburger is trying hard to create an Uber brand over a large number of jokey kind of sites. Huffington Post has done a pretty interesting job of branding a piece of other people's property. Stephen Colbert the other night did a very clever thing in which he rebranded Huffington Post as what did he call it? Cole Buffington Post, by wrapping his own frame around their site in its entirety. So that kind of game in which I grab your stuff, I call it my content, and I put my brand on it. That's what's going on, and it's shaking out quite vigorously.